In this video, I'm going to show my method for converting this type of side light to accept a double filament bulb so you can install turn signals. So the brighter filament is flashing, has the turn signal, but yet you still have your side light function. And this type of light is commonly found on Springfield Silver Ghosts as well as early Springfield Phantom 1s. This assembly is relatively easy. You have these two pins on either side which lift out. You don't have to remove both pins, you can always hinge it as I just did. Then you have these three screws. And the reflector will come out. Then we can disconnect this wire by undoing this screw. Which pinches in this wire. So that pulls out like that. And you put your reflector aside. And now we have this socket and plug inside of here. And it looks like this when it's out. And this is a single contact type, which is the original one. So you have this pinch screw right here. So there's the pinch screw. Release that. Oops. And that should allow this socket to come out. This one's a little stiffer than the other one was. Might need to give it a little wiggle. So then that section comes out. And I have already installed the double contact plug on this end. And you'll notice that these pins are indexed so that they'll only go on and off one way. This is going to be the new socket, so we can have the double contacts, and it goes on like this once you line up the pin with the slots. Sort of a bayonet style connector. And what happens is you have this screw in the middle, and when you undo that, a little brass piece will come out. And the wire is held into that brass piece, and then the screw goes back in. So for now, we're all set with everything that needs to be done here, and we're going to be able to take the reflector to the bench and our socket and work on getting the install in place in that. So what we do with our reflector is we take our phenolic piece out and there's two little areas where it's crimped in. A lot of times you can do a little wiggling and get that to come out. Sometimes it's a little tougher than that though, since those really crimp it in there. Another thing that can work is to just unsolder it together with this bezel here. And I think I'm going to give that a go. So we're just going to gently hold it. Apply a little bit of heat. You want to be very careful so you don't disturb the silvering on the lens. Usually doesn't take a whole lot of heat. Okay, so it's in there a little tighter than I had anticipated, so I'm going to take the phenolic piece out first. Then what you can do is pinch this inner bushing with a pair of vice grips like this. And apply the heat again. But we can go a little hotter now. So unfortunately this piece has some cracks already. So it didn't survive, but we'll put it aside anyway. And then now what we have to do is solder the bulb holder in place. This is not a very difficult bulb holder to get. I'm using a staggered pin 2 contact, of course. So you pull out the contacts with the wires. I normally get these off of Amazon or something. It's BAY15D SW. I think the sticker there says superbrightled.com. So I find that the insulating piece will will hold well against the temperature. So I'll show you my method for soldering that in place, because it's a little bit tricky. So I put that on that aluminum round bar, and that'll stop it from falling all the way down through. Then we go back to our torch. We find a good place to melt that at, melt the solder into. And you can really hold the torch back quite a bit. And you just put a nice bead on there. Do the same on the other side. Let it cool. Might even lower down a little. I just give the silvering a little wipe. It normally cleans right back up again since the heat wasn't too intense. So I'll do a little more cleaning up, but there it is. Now we can put the wires back in. And it's now well attached. I find that this part of the bracket doesn't really get in the way, and I just normally leave it there. So I find now is usually a good time to attach to this adapter. There's a little bit of a trick to it. I like to strip a good bit of this insulation off. About that much. Bend over, twist up, bend over the wire like this. And the reason for that is because originally they used a larger gauge wire. And what will happen is the contacts, the screw contacts inside here will go down too far and won't make contact if the wire is too thin and those screw heads go down into the insulation too far. So I like to apply a little solder because that again thickens it up some more, and there's a little bit of room to play with. We let these cool. It looks like I have to back off a screw a little bit here. Maybe both of them. and then you tighten up these screws, and then that'll pinch onto the wire. Ouch. Oops. Wire didn't stay in place. At least that one didn't. And these are also spring loaded so that there's some flex to allow the screw to still get into good contact with the contact on the plug. Okay. So yeah, so now we have all of this attached. And this portion of it is ready to go back into the car. Okay, so we can now install the reflector and the socket in place. Again, it just slips through this bushing in the light housing, and I like to align it up to where this screw, which holds in the plastic insulation, is going to be coming into contact with the bolt that pinches in there. This little screw. If that nut comes unsoldered off, you can always use the small screw that's in that socket, and it'll reach all the way through with no nut in place. So we just tighten up this screw till it pinches into the and keeps it secure. Oop. So yeah, so that nut I'd mentioned came unsoldered, so we're going to do the method that I had just recommended. I make these sockets and plugs. I don't know of any other source for them. They look kind of like a typical thing that you could probably find on Amazon or something, but they're rather quite unique. So that's why I had to go to the trouble to making batches of them. Okay, so for something like this, I usually find that a holder screwdriver is necessary. So now we put this in place, and then we line up that hole and put the screw in. It can be a little difficult getting things lined up. Well, with a little bit of patience and perseverance, you will get it. And you want to be sure that this is all making good contact because you need the ground for the light bulbs to function. Or light bulb, I should say. So make sure it's in there nice and snug. I have a bulb in place, so I'll just put this in place and we'll do a little test once I connect the plug in. Remember, these pins are indexed. I won't say staggered because they're on the same level. So we get that in place and then we give it a test. We hope for the best. Okay, looks like we might not be making good contact since I have it on and it's not working. So let's try that. So we have one filament that's making good contact, but the other one isn't. So sometimes it takes a little bit of getting things lined up and working. All right, so let's take a little bit of time to investigate. It's always good to learn some diagnostic techniques. So, using our trouble light, we'll see if we have contact here. No, we do not. So it's probably in here that's the, could be the, oh. Ah. So the contact just wasn't quite getting there, so now we have it. See if we can position this in such a way that the filaments are facing nicely. So that looks good. So we put our screws back in. So normally when I rewire a car, I like to add in turn signals, and I like to do so with separate wiring to each bulb. There's other methods that you can use where the brake light wiring can also be converted to flash as well. But I think having a separate wire with a separate light is really ideal because of visibility. And also, it just, for me, I think it just works a little bit better. So, yeah, so when I rewire a car, I always install turn signal wires, front, back, right, left. And I normally use cloth-covered wire so that they look like they belong. Springfield cars had really, most of them had really nothing in the way of any kind of indicators, where the British cars usually had a trafficator. So now we get our bezel back in place and put the pin in. And we give it another test. I'm going to do a test with both on. So, yeah, you can really see that if you were in another car and out on the road. That would certainly give you indication that this fellow is turning. I'm also going to explain to you, I have the 12 volt, I have the turn signals working off of a 12 volt system. The rest of the car is 6 volt, but the turn signals are 12 volt, and the side lights are 6 volt. So I'm using an 1154 bulb, which is actually a 6 volt bulb. So the brighter blinking filament is getting more voltage than what the bottom filament or the tail light filament is getting. So I like to do it that way. That way you have really good brightness. And I may even try using an LED bulb in this, but that might be difficult since I have polarity going 2 different ways. LEDs are polarity specific, and so I got to figure that out. And I also don't know how it's going to manage to handle the 6 volt and the 12 volt. So I'll have to experiment and see what happens.